We have 13 passenger trams here at Seaton Tramway, but the fleet numbers run from 2 to 19, so a lot of people ask why certain numbers aren't used. In this short film, we'll try and explain. To begin, here's a grid to show which numbers are currently in use. As you can see, we don't use numbers 1, 3 or 5, but that's a long story which we'll deal with in a moment. The number 13 isn't used because we're a superstitious lot and haven't had the courage to use it so far. The number 17 was used between 1988 and 2015 for the car which is now numbered 15, and the number 18 has never been used, but numbers 17 and 18 would be used for any future trams that might be added. Beyond that, and we'll be into the 20s. You can find out all about the current fleet on our website at tram.co.uk. So in this film, we'll focus on the missing numbers 1, 3 and 5, starting right at the beginning with number 1. Our founder, Claude Lane, built his first tram in 1949, purely for his own pleasure and with no serious thought of carrying passengers. The design was based on the two ex-Darwin cars which ran at Llandudno and Colwyn Bay. They were numbered 23 and 24, so Claude chose to number his first tram 23, rather than number 1. Having built the tram, Claude ran it by invitation at local outdoor events in North London and Hertfordshire, using portable track, portable overhead wire and portable power generation. It quickly became a popular draw, and Claude found himself busy on most weekends. In 1950, Claude decided to build a second tram, this time based on the well-known open boat design that still operates at Blackpool. This was 225, which was the number of the prototype at Blackpool. Cars 23 and 225 ran together on the portable system throughout 1950, and also at St Leonard's in 1951 as part of the first experimental summer season. Although St Leonard's decided against renewing the tramway's concession, Claude was convinced that he could operate his trams as a visitor attraction, and secured an agreement to operate on a short line within the Vorrid amusement park in Rhyl from 1952. The first two trams had been built primarily for Claude's own pleasure, but he now realised that a further tram was required, able to carry adults as well as children. To achieve this on 15-inch gauge would require an open topper. This time, he used his own freelance design, which was his interpretation of a tram from the Edwardian era. Because of this, he gave it the number 3, since it was the third tram he had built. In 1952 and 1953, cars 23, 225 and 3 operated successfully at Rhyl, and by now Claude had decided that he wanted to run his own permanent tramway on a permanent site. This led to an agreement with Eastbourne Borough Council to operate a line there, which was agreed at the end of 1953. Claude decided that Eastbourne Tramway would be a 2-foot gauge line, which would allow larger trams to be built to carry the larger number of visitors that he expected. However, the line at Rhyl would also continue, so there was a need for more cars at both sites. The small scale of car 23 meant that it could not be used on a 2-foot gauge line, so it remained at Rhyl. However, cars 225 and 3 returned to Barnet for re-gauging ahead of their arrival at Eastbourne in 1954. In order to expand the fleet quickly, Claude built another open boat car in early 1954, which, unsurprisingly, was numbered 226. Although being slightly bigger than 225, they were both 12-seaters. At the same time, a 5th and a 6th tram were both on the drawing board, but because time was of the essence, the 6th one was built first. The 6th tram was loosely based on the open toast rack single-deckers of Llandudno and Colwyn Bay, which was very quick to build due to its minimal bodywork. The looseness of the design meant that Claude felt able to number it 6, and the car was allocated to Rhyl in order to support car 23. After time ran out before the start of the 1954 season, the 5th tram wasn't completed until early 1955. This was allocated to Eastbourne and outwardly appeared to be a double-decker based on the design of the Blackpool balloon trams, and therefore numbered 238. However, the outer appearance was an illusion. Inside, the tram was actually a single-decker, with the only top deck seating coming in the form of a double seat above the cabs. You may notice that none of these 6 trams are part of today's Seaton Tramway fleet, so what became of them? Car 23 continued to operate at Rhyl until Claude decided to close that line and his original works at Barnet, and instead focus all efforts on Eastbourne. With Car 23 unable to operate on 2 foot gauge, it was put up for sale, and in 1958 moved to the home of its new owner near Glasgow. It remained there for the next 25 years, gradually falling out of use and confined to the owner's garage. In the mid-1980s, it was taken over by the Merseyside Transport Preservation Society. An initial restoration was completed, but the society had no long-term plan for it. Eventually, one of the society's members took it on. Following a visit to Seaton Tramway in 1995 as part of the 25th anniversary celebrations, the car finally received a full restoration and is still operational in its owner's back garden. Car 6 returned from Rhyl at the end of 1954 after only 1 season, because the owners of Vorrid Park felt that it was unpopular with visitors. The car was completely stripped down to its frame, which was then extended and a new body constructed, based on the ex-Bournemouth open toppers at Llandudno and Colwyn Bay. The new improved Car 6 was launched into service at Eastbourne in 1956 and has remained in the fleet ever since. Its design proved to be highly successful, leading the way to similar but even bigger cars in future at both Eastbourne and Seaton. Very little of the original single-decker Car 6 remains, although a close inspection in the pit still reveals parts of the original underframe. Car 226 remained in service at Eastbourne until 1959, but its 12-seat capacity meant that it struggled to cope with the increasing numbers of visitors. In 1960, 226 was withdrawn and rebuilt as Open Works Car 01. It was rebuilt again as Mobile Tram Shop 01 in 1965, and it's in this form that many people will remember it, serving as the shop at Seaton right through until 1995. Car 4 was built in 1961 and took over the 4th place on the list from 226. The 3 other early cars, 225, 3 and 238, all remained in regular service at Eastbourne until 1958, when Car 7 joined the fleet. After this, their limited capacity meant that they were confined to the depot for most of the time. However, an unexpected saviour came in the form of businessman Don Sorensen from Wilton, Connecticut, in the United States. He visited Eastbourne Tramway in 1962 and was so taken with it that he asked to buy the whole operation. Not surprisingly, Claude refused, but did show him the 3 disused cars, and a deal was struck for the sale of all 3. Sorensen returned in 1963 to spend time learning the basics of tram maintenance, and then in November 1963 the 3 cars were shipped to their new home in the USA. They remained operating in the Sorensen back garden for the rest of the 1960s, but after the Sorensens moved away, all trace of the trams was lost, and their whereabouts remained a total mystery for over 40 years. However, Car 3 was discovered again in 2017 at a museum in Ohio, where it is undergoing a gradual restoration. These early cars left a long-term legacy because, in addition to having carried the tramway's early passengers, the sale of Car 23 enabled Car 7 to be built in 1958, and the sale of the 3 cars to the USA financed the building of Car 2 in 1964, which took the 2nd position on the fleet list from 225. So that's the story of our fleet numbering system, and we hope you've enjoyed hearing all about it.